NFPA 1710 sets forth in concise terms the resource requirements for fires, emergencies, and other incidents.
The first strategy is life safety, since that's our number one goal. What do we need first that will have the greatest effect on saving lives? Secondly, the strategy is then how do we stabilize this incident? How do we control the fire? How do we confine the fire, keep the fire from spreading in that building and keep it from spreading to adjacent buildings?
I'm on a truck company, so I'm in charge of forcible entry. So I'm trying to force entry, and the other guys are on the roof trying to ventilate while someone else is trying to turn off the utilities, while somebody else is breaking windows. It's really a lot of things going on, and it all has to go on at the same time. Then you have the engine companies there ready to go in and put water on it. And you have your rescue squads there ready to go in and look for victims or hopefully save someone.
We need to have the right amount of apparatus, equipment, meaning the tools that come off that apparatus, and the personnel, so that we can simultaneously attack the fire, ventilate the fire, do search and rescue operations, and provide for a water supply and have a rapid intervention team.
With 4 members on a crew, the officer isn't tied to just the hose line. You can get out, take a look, get a visual, get around the structure, get back and give some specific directions on where the members need to go and see what's going on inside the building.
At an accident scene, he can step ahead of the problem. He can anticipate the tasks. If it's just him and a firefighter, he just moves from task to task.
Response time and minimum staffing are equally important when we roll emergency medical services.
A lot of what we do is driven by time, by our ability to get there in a certain amount of time, and then when we do get there, to have the right number of people who are correctly trained and appropriately equipped to take that situation and improve it. You're talking about time frames that sometimes are within a minute. By having more people, you enhance your ability to control the unknown and the uncertainty of the out-of-hospital environment, such that you defeat, if you will, this time variable that we work against. If we don't have the right number of people there doing the right thing in the right amount of time, things don't improve. Things get worse. People are injured or people die.
Response times are critical in both fire and EMS calls for help, where an on-scene maximum of 3 to 4 minutes means a fire can be attacked before it is out of control, and a heart and cardiac arrest can receive CPR and defibrillation before the occurrence of brain death. NFPA 1710 sets the minimum number of personnel needed to effectively meet these time-critical emergencies. It is a scientific standard, and it is a matter of life.
For the first time in our history, we have a document that will help us determine the amount of equipment we need at emergency scenes, the amount of personnel we need to adequately protect our community. NFPA 1710 will prove to be the most important document for the future of the fire service.
It's no longer an opinion, it's a matter of fact. It gives us and the community and administrators a foundation of what is properly needed to address the concerns of whether it's a medical emergency or a fire incident.
Even though the citizens might know the dynamics of 1710, we as firefighters know on the front lines that this is the only protection that they have. So it's up to us to ensure that 1710 is enacted, it is put in place so that we can properly protect the citizens we serve.
Much as we'd like to think that every risk event is new and different, that they aren't. And particularly when we're talking about an organization like a fire department, there's a history of things that could go wrong. And once you have a standard that helps you prepare to respond to those things that happen, you can have a lot more confidence that they're going to do it right over and over again. And as a community, by implementing NFPA 1710, you are acting to minimize the consequences of an adverse event.
If a community decides not to comply with 1710, they are deciding to accept the adverse risk situations that come along with having an unprepared emergency response system. And by these consequences, I mean loss of life, loss of property, and in some cases, catastrophic losses of tax base.
My office, together with the City Council, began evaluating much-needed improvements in our city's emergency response system, and our decisions for change were based primarily on the requirements in the Nfpa 1710 standard. In August, voters approved a ballot measure that ensured we could get the job done. But more importantly, because of 1710, Kansas City will provide a more effective, efficient, and safer system to respond to all emergencies.
Here in Kansas City, we know the standard is in effect now, but we have a long way to go before we will be in compliance with 1710. So currently, we're in the process through a labor management partnership of creating a 5-year strategic phase-in and implementation of our services.
The fire service has become the all-threat responder. The fire service has become the default responder for most of the natural or man-made problems that occur in our society. We need to do whatever we can to ensure that appropriately trained people are as widely dispersed and as quickly available as possible. 40 years ago, you called the ambulance and you waited and you took your chances. Today, you call, you expect prompt, professional, efficient service, and you expect to live.
I guess we assume and expect that we will get protection and it will come quickly, and that people will be trained. Fire is extraordinarily intrusive on everything. I mean, it's frightening even to think back on it. I didn't have a healthy enough appreciation for what fire does to the premises and to the spirit.
If you know there's a victim, if you know there's a child, you've got to be aggressive right then, and you've got to be able to find out where that person is. With adequate staffing, the problems and dynamics of the fire ground are more in control.
There's just so much that has to be done. And that's why having enough staff and having a well-trained staff is so vital to the operation.
Well, our goal every day we go to work is to have everybody return home safely to their family. And with adequate staffing levels, that gives us a tool that we can do that.
It's priceless. I mean, I think about my daughter, standing there, not knowing whether I'm going to live or die. Everything that happens after that time is in a way a result of the fact that the emergency personnel were there to save me. And I don't think you can measure the whole rest of a life.
We should do everything we can to protect the public against foreseeable risk. So they should adopt the standard, give the fire departments whatever it is they need to do it right, because it'll save money in the long run, and it'll save lives too. Eventually it'll become the minimum standard, and maybe even cities that do not adopt it could be sued for not adopting it. But I just think it's the right thing to do the best that we can to help people avoid death, injury, and destruction from fire or any other cause, because it does happen. And I used to think it couldn't happen to me, but it could, and it did. And it can happen to you. It can happen to anybody. If it's a matter of life this time, will your fire department be ready?